So we begin today. Starts with we read last time a sentence which really is a description of the mother also. A combatant in silent, dreadful lists, the world unknowing, for the world she stood. If you remember, lists is where individual duels take place. One warrior fights another warrior. Here, the two great powers of love and grace and death and destruction, which have always seemed to be inevitable and all-powerful. But she has come to break that rule. The world doesn't believe it, that things can change. She has come to bring that change. But it will be difficult. The resistance, the lack of faith. One description that Mother gives about the reason why Aurobindo left his body is that there was a lack of faith. If the world had been more receptive, if the disciples had been more receptive, this sacrifice would not have been necessary. This is exactly what she says. But this is our problem. We worship, but we don't believe from within that there can be a fundamental change. She has come to make it happen. The world unknowing, for the world she stood. No helper had she save the strength within. There was no witness of terrestrial eyes. Because in battles, particularly duels, there are always witnesses. But these are two powerful principles and forces, the force of light, the force of darkness, the force of love and faith, and the opposite. But nature is deceptive. The gods, the principles, the powers that are at work or at play in the universal diversity of manifestation, they are receptive. They are aware. Only man, through whom evolution takes place, that human being is not aware of how much is being done by the divine grace. That's why we don't even feel grateful, because we don't even know. But the forces know. The gods know. Nature is very receptive also. And so there's a beautiful description here of the world in which, the place in which this battle takes place. The gods above and nature's soul below were the spectators of that mighty strife. Because the gods, they don't contribute in the evolution. They are universal principles. If we are receptive, they can come down and work, but they will not intervene. Nature is the field of evolution. Nature is Prakriti. Nature is where earth forces, the force of the earth, which is founded on inconscience, on darkness, ignorance, resistance, but slowly breaks out of it, slowly moves ahead. And the symbol, for instance, of the mountain, because this battlefield is taking place in the backdrop of mountains and forests, all that is grand in the world of nature. The mountain is like a straight upward movement, as if an aspiration climbing up from below. The forest is life, vast, where the winds and the forces play. They are very open. Man is not always. Therefore, around her, the austere sky-pointing hills. Austere because it totally turned only in one direction. The direction is upwards. The mountains turn only upwards. They don't meander, they don't forget to climb, they move only in one direction. Man forgets. Man loses contact. The ascetic does not. The ascetic is very austere. He lives only for one goal. The mountain lives for one goal, to touch the sky. So around her were the austere sky-pointing hills, and the green, murmurous, broad, deep-thoughted woods. The wind playing in the leaves, as if transmitting forces, messages from other worlds. As the leaves rustle, they transmit a message. Nature receives the message, transmits it, but nobody is there to listen. These vast forests are by themselves. Muttered incessantly their muffled spell. That's why they cast a kind of a spell. If one is truly open to nature, one can be wrapped in another play of forces, because nature can alter us if we allow ourselves to be open to her. So the description of this world where she, Savitri, had lived for a year. She had left the life of the palace and had concentrated on this one aim, which was to combat death for the sake of love. So this sense of concentration, of quietness was there in her, because the world in which she had accepted to live was also completely cut off from all the play and need for enjoyment and pleasure, which for man is something very normal. A dense, magnificent, colored, self-wrapped life. This is the forest. It doesn't ask for anybody to look at it, to admire it. It lives for itself. The trees move towards the heavens. The mountains move towards the heavens. Everything is quiet and has only one aim, to move upwards. Nothing but that. Draped in the leaves' vivid emerald monotone, and set with checkered sunbeams and blithe flowers. Here and there, wherever there is a little clearing, you have a flash of light, a play of life, colored flowers and butterflies and birds. But they come only where there is a kind of a clearing in the forest. Otherwise, the forest is completely covered with this deep, quiet, meditative greenness. And she had lived there for a year, and therefore, draped in the leaves' vivid emerald monotone, and set with checkered sunbeams and blithe flowers, immured her destiny's secluded scene. Immured is, I suppose, is taken from the French mur, which is walled. So she had walled in her life in this kind of a setting. This world of vast quietness and peace had made her also quiet, strong, vast. There is no ego in the forest. There is no ego in the mountain. That is why they can manifest the truth. She had become completely one with this kind of world. There had she grown to the stature of her spirit. Having blended herself into that world, her spirit, which was divine, had influenced her outer nature, her outer being. In all of us there is a spirit. In all of us there is the divine. In all of us there is a division between the surface nature and the inner being. The surface nature is weak, is not always pure, is not always steady, it gets disturbed. The inner being is one with the divine because it is the divine. But there is a division, there is a surface ego and there is the inner being. When the inner being becomes expressed in the outer nature, that is the real first goal of yoga, where your outer being becomes an expression of your inner nature. In all that you say, do, there is an expression of the divine and nothing but that. There, as Mother says, first get rid of your divisions, become one person. Then what one does becomes far stronger, one-pointed, and therefore can lead to an ultimate success. So she had prepared herself for this day, for this moment. There had she grown to the stature of her spirit, because she too had to do her yoga. She had put on her human nature. She had to pass through all the human difficulties. Only then could she be a guide to the human being who is caught up in so many difficulties. The genius of titanic silences, steeping her soul in its wide loneliness, had shown to her herself's bare reality and mated her with her environment. The genius is really spirit. That's the meaning, original meaning of genius. So that simplicity of absolute loneliness, not needing any kind of pursuit of pleasures and satisfactions, because in the forest there is nothing to pursue. The only possibility is to sit quietly and concentrate. So she had grown as receptacle of this vast silence. This silence he describes as titanic, indicating the power that is there in that quietness. It is not simply a passive silence. It is a powerful silence, titanic silence. It can therefore fight against all that is incapable of bearing the pressure of the weakness of the surface life. So this is what she had become, the spirit of this huge silence, steeping her soul in its wide loneliness. That's a sign, as Mother said, there are many people who are afraid to be alone. They always look for company. But if you are one with the divine and you have only the divine for your companion, then you are not really a slave, always looking for all kinds of activities and companionships and pleasures and enjoyments. This is the wide loneliness. She had become vast. She's not just a young girl, she was a vast person. Had shown to her herself's bare reality. This is what we all are. She had realized that which she was. She was the supreme embodiment of power, of quietness, of love. She's doing it out of love for mankind. It is the force, as it was always there in Aurobindo. He describes one experience in one of his lines: force, one with immeasurable rest. Peace, rest, quietness, sometimes considered the contrary of force. But when that force is absolutely still, nothing can break it. No storm can really break down that wall of quietness. And so mated her, connected her with the vastness of the mountains and the forests and the skies, all that is grand and infinite in nature. Its solitude greatened her human hours with a background of the eternal and unique. She had lived quietly in the forest. There is nothing except the eternal. The mountains are eternal. The skies are eternal. The forests are eternal. And she realized she too is like that. We all are. That is why I suppose from time immemorial, sages have always been attracted to the mountains and the forests when they want to find their inmost truth. It is not absolutely necessary, one can do it sitting in a room anywhere. But there is a contribution that nature makes. It is much easier. You can become as vast as the sky if you are identified with the sky. You can become as infinite as the ocean if you lose your ego and blend with the ocean that spreads out before you. So nature really helps. Mother has said it many times, and it had helped her. She who had grown up in opulence, in comfort, in all that wealth, and you might say all the contributions of being the child of a great king, all that she had freely given up and had become stronger for it. Therefore, the next line: a force of spare, direct necessity reduced the heavy framework of man's days. This is very interesting. Man life is one thing, but he depends on this activity, that possession, that honor, privileges, all the display of pomp and pageantry that makes you feel, that makes man feel, I've achieved something, I've become a great man, I've done this, I've done that, I've achieved this, I've gone there. But who is this I? Who is this true person who has done this and that and achieved this and that? We don't really realize that in our pursuit of power and pleasure and money, we do not remember to be ourselves, to know who we are. We are running after all kinds of things. Here, she did not have all that at all. She was living in the simplest possible life. Spare, in the old, real, original sense, meant very thin, very poor. The opposite of wealth. So spare is that which barely, necessity, the things that one barely requires. The minimum food, minimum shelter. One doesn't really need to have a kind of constantly the pleasure and enjoyment of all kinds of wealth. This makes us focus on these outward things. Here, she focused only on her inner life, because there was no outward life, simplest of outward lives. So it is a force. Very few can live like that. One of the greatest punishments that was given was to put a person in solitary confinement. There's nothing to do. A person goes mad, or, like Aurobindo, becomes aware of his inmost divinity. There is nothing else to do. Become one with the eternal, one with the divine. But how many are like that? That's why the solitary confinement was supposed to be one of the biggest punishments. But for him, he became one with the universal, living in a cell. So this is a force. Necessity is poverty. There are many meanings to the word necessity. A needy person is a person who doesn't have much. So that is one of the meanings of necessity. To have just the barest minimum, a force of spare direct necessity, reduced the heavy framework. Sometimes it's like looking at a picture where we appreciate the frame so much that we forget about the picture. We forget about the essence of things. We forget to focus on the central truth. We focus on the outward things. And his overburdening mass of outward needs to a first thin strip of simple animal wants. Animal wants what any living being needs: food, raiment, shelter. That's all. Doesn't need anything else. That's the barest minimum. And the mighty wildness of the primitive earth, and the brooding multitude of patient trees. What a beautiful way of describing trees, quietly, all the time meditating on this one goal, patiently trying to climb upwards. Not getting impatient. When will the tree touch the sky? It doesn't matter. It keeps on and on and on trying. So this is the whole aspect of nature, where all change can happen, all evolution does take place. Yes, it takes place very slowly, but it doesn't get impatient. When we fail to achieve a goal, we've said, I've waited so long, I've tried so much, when will I get my answer, when will I get my realization? The tree doesn't quarrel with the divine. The mountain doesn't. It doesn't really touch the sky. It attempts quietly, silently. That is its strength. So this is the wildness of primitive earth. There is a grandeur in all this quietness and greatness, and the brooding multitude of patient trees, and the musing sapphire leisure of the sky. The same thing, quiet, silent, blue sky. And this is one of the advices also Mother has given. If you want to widen your nature, just look at the sky. Your mind stops to think, it doesn't think anymore, becomes a quiet, calm, vast, infinite. There are three things in nature, she says. There is the sky, that is an expression of the infinite. There is the ocean, that is an expression of the infinite. And there is the sense of the wide open earth. You can keep on and on, pushing the horizon further and further. There is no end. This expands our consciousness, widens us, makes us forget our littleness. So here, she had all these things living in the forest for 1 year. And the musing sapphire leisure of the sky is quiet and patient and does not insist. And the solemn weight of the slowly passing months had left in her deep room for thought and God. There is the implication, in us there is no room, no place for God or for meditation. Meditation is maybe for a few minutes a day. But constantly, one doesn't have to sit in a special session of meditation. If one does, it's fine. But constantly to be in touch with that inner divinity. That is concentration, that is meditation. Meditation is to think, to go deep inside, to meditate, to concentrate, to have no other thought but that one need for the contact with the divine. So she had done this. This was her yoga. This will be developed at length in Book 7, but in a few lines it describes how she had spent this 12 months there. There was her drama's radiant prologue lived. Drama, because drama is based on conflict, always. There are two protagonists and antagonists. There is a clash. And if it's a great clash, the two have to be equal. Otherwise, it's not really a drama. And she has prepared herself to challenge that infinitely strong antagonist that says that wherever there is a beginning, there is an end. Whatever starts, ends. If there is a birth, there has to be death. And this is the truth. This has been always the truth. And she has come to say, all is born of the divine, who is the eternal. All, therefore, is eternal. So this is the clash. Is it that we are children of eternity? Or is it that we are children of time? If we are children of time and we relate ourselves as children of time, we are mortals. If we know that we are born from the eternal, we are eternal. But it's not a mental statement, it has to be lived from within. The body can come and go and change, but the person never goes. He is part of eternity. Then you can say, I am a child of immortality. And that is the great stotra, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. We go to the Amrita, from death to immortality. Because this is the clash, the drama. Man is caught in the middle. In a play, there is always a theme, a truth, a message, and there are two camps who want to take control of that. It can be war, it can be love, it can be knowledge, it can be anything. But there has to be a clash. So she had prepared herself for this battle. Just 1 year was the prologue, a preparation. A spot. So the drama was something here, her drama is something very, very central to the human existence. And therefore it is a place of great, you might say, concentrated quietness and strength which is required where you can prepare yourself. You can never prepare yourself for anything unless you know how to be quiet before that. That even on a lesser scale, if you have to fight a battle, or if you have to put up a play and do it really well, there is always got to be, as Mother had always told us, before you go on stage, you have to learn to be absolutely quiet and surrender and open yourself to allow the force that we used to do Sri Aurobindo's plays, to allow him to speak through you. So that your personality, your individual like and dislike, all that has to go. So this is the whole secret of life. She had learnt it in that wonderful place where there was no ego, there was only opening to light in the mountains, in the forests, and the rivers, the vast rivers that come rushing down the mountains, the skies. So a spot for the eternal's tread on earth. Set in the cloistral yearning of the woods. Cloister is a monastery, a place of aspiration, of concentration, really, genuinely a place for turning all one's energies upwards, Godwards. So again the same image, the forest. The forest where there is a yearning towards the skies, heaven amorous, as Sri Aurobindo describes the tree. So she lived there, set in the cloistral yearning of the woods, and watched by the aspiration of the peaks. The mountains represent the aspiration of the earth. Everything here seems to be aspiring upwards. She also became an embodiment of aspiration and quietness. Appeared through an aureate opening in time, where stillness, listening, felt the unspoken word, and the hours forgot to pass towards grief and change. The symbol of eternity, of quietness and calm. The mountains are quiet and calm and undisturbed. So she came there. It's as if it was a golden moment when she had. Aureate is golden. Aureate opening in time. And that is again, later she meets Satyavan in this forest. It was a certain golden moment when the meeting of the earth soul and the divine grace takes place. We can see the parallel when Mother meets Sri Aurobindo. It's one of those golden moments. Where stillness, listening, felt the unspoken word. Listening is not the same as hearing. Listen, you don't listen with your ear. You listen from within, the mind, the heart, the consciousness. So if we hear no longer just the outward movements and sounds, we can often hear from within the truth that is at work behind all the play of outward change. There are those who can. That is what is really described in Sanskrit as the word Shruti. You hear not with the ear, but with the spirit. It's a very rare faculty. Rishis had it. Drishti and Shruti, which is not simply seeing and hearing, but realizing, experiencing. But for that, one has to wipe off all the surface mental thinkings and judgments and opinions and all that keeps on moving through our minds. When one is absolutely quiet, one hears the word. The word is a projection of the divine message, divine consciousness. That is the meaning of the word. And that is why It's as if the divine projects his consciousness and sets into play a new message. Every great revelation is a word. That is Vak. That is Vani. It's an expression of the divine. But we don't know the divine, nor do we know his message. We hear words which are we read them on the surface, and our ears and minds perhaps respond to some extent. But when we are completely quiet, the divine message then fills the being. And that is why there was always the force of silence. In the silence, you hear the word when one is absolutely quiet. Sometimes poets have this ability, like even Keats, who said, "Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter." Unheard by the ear, unheard by the surface. There one gets in touch with the source of all harmony. So there she had grown to the stature of her spirit, where the hours forgot to pass towards grief and change. Because grief and change are things that are part of our surface life. Here there was the concentration of the eternal presence. Here, with the suddenness divine advents have, repeating the marvel of the first descent, changing to rapture the dull earthly round, love came to her, hiding the shadow, death. It is in such a place that she has met Satyavan. He's giving us in this page also certain, we might say, the outline of the narrative. Because this is the issue. The narrative is also given to us. Here, with the suddenness divine advents are. Advent is coming. Something that happens, something that comes. Advenir in French. But it is not used for human comings, any ordinary happening. It is a divine coming, a divine happening. Love is a divine force. The universe exists because of love. The divine projects himself into space, into time. For what reason? Why has the divine put forth his force? This force is love. It is Ananda. Ananda is love and beauty and joy. And it is this that is really at the core of all things, which is why we love life, which is why we don't want to leave it. However hard our life may be, we don't want to leave it because it is this that is holding us up. But there are moments when there are special experiences of this. So when she had met Satyavan, she had experienced that. It is for this that she has come on earth, to make the human an embodiment of the divine. Because in him, the human evolving spirit had come up so far, because he is divine, but the divine in the human. She has entered as on the earth to really manifest that divine that was hiding in him. And yet he is put on a human body in which all the elements of inconscience and imperfection and impurities are there. And therefore, the element of destruction and death are also there. So this is when the meeting between, her meeting with Satyavan had made her aware that she will liberate him from the clutches of death If she can, she will fight. She doesn't know the end result yet. But in him the divine is present, but it is still cloaked in all the elements of inconscience and ignorance. And it is suddenly, he is the soul of the earth. And she has come to liberate the soul of the earth from the darkness. Here, with the suddenness divine advents have, repeating the marvel of the first descent. Every time love comes, every time it is marvelous. The first divine descent on the earth is the coming down of the Supreme Mahashakti who has come on the earth to help the earth to grow out of its inertia and climb up towards the light. This descent is the descent of the avatar of the mother. This is the first descent. And this is an act of absolute selfless love. And when, even in our ordinary human lives, we feel something of that, we forget ourselves. When there is really love, there is no thinking of oneself. The ego is pushed away, even if it's for a little while. It's marvelous. So here, she had, every time there is love, repeat the marvel of the first descent. We can't hold on to that marvel because the ego is very strong, it comes up again and again. But there is this possibility of breaking out of the ego, and the breaking out of the ego is thanks to love. Changing to rapture the dull earthly round. Otherwise, what is our life? It repeats the same cycle, just like the earth repeats its same journey, the same orbit over and over again, turning to the light, turning to the sun, turning away from the light, turning in, falling back into night. It is a repetition of rise and fall, of darkness and light. And suddenly, a moment of illumination, of self-forgetting, of self-giving. So, it is in this spot that love came to her. Savitri, the human individual, also found this moment, hiding the shadow death. Well might he find in her his perfect shrine. It's a very sad thing. Love is always there, but we can't hold on to love. Our selfishness, our need to really dictate, to dominate, takes over. Whereas love is the opposite. And therefore, in a way, love has no home. Love is a homeless spirit. For the first time, he has found someone who knows how to love. Well might he find in her his perfect shrine. He is love. Since first the earth being's heavenward growth began, this is the evolution of man as he climbs from his humanity towards something, attempting to be something more than the average human being. So since first the earth being's heavenward growth began, through all the long ordeal of the race, this growth is not straightforward. It rises and falls, it goes up and down, it succeeds and fails again and again. Never a rarer creature bore his shaft. Love is very difficult. Therefore, love is often compared to a god who shoots arrows. He shoots arrows at your ego, at your surface nature, at your weaknesses, at your all that is negative in your being. All this has to go. You can't bear the burden of love for too long. because we can't get out of all these darknesses. And therefore, love tries to enter into our hearts, but we can't bear his presence for too long. At this time, a person could bear the presence of love. That a beautiful description in the next line of what is truly love. That burning test of the Godhead in our parts. It's a test of how divine we are. If we know what is love, it means we are being tested by the divine. Because again and again, love is self-giving. There is no place for oneself, one's own little self, one's own demands, one's own absolute, egoistic domination. All that is not love. It's not a vital attraction. There is no place for these things. It's a complete capacity to transmit this divine force, which is love, which is where there's a very beautiful line in Italian which Aurobindo has quoted, that love that moves the suns and the other stars. The whole universe is moved by the divine love. It holds up creation. That, can we receive it? If we receive, can we hold on to it? Can we transmit it? It is a test of how divine we are. That burning test of the Godhead in our parts. It burns down our ego, our resistances. A lightning from the heights on our abyss. It's like a flash of lightning. The lightning illumines. The lightning destroys. The lightning burns down. Dry wood, dry branches. It's like a flash. Love is a flash. It illumines the darkness. It destroys what is resistant. That she is capable of bearing, of receiving and bearing the burden of love. She is love today. There is nothing but that. So all in her pointed to a nobler kind. Everything in her being is different from the average, ordinary human being. We are afraid to be out of the ordinary. We want to be like everybody else. She was unique. Everything in her was different. Near to earth's wideness, intimate with heaven. The one did not cancel the other. She was one with all. She understood the human problems. She shared this part of the human existence of nature, and yet never lost touch with the divine. Again and again, this is a description of the mother. She understands us, our weaknesses, our errors, because she has taken it on herself, and yet never loses touch with the highest worlds. Exalted and swift. Exalted is high, raised high. Exalted and swift. Her young, large visioned spirit, voyaging through worlds of splendor and of calm, overflew the ways of thought to unborn things. This is what she has come to do. To go, to attempt that which has not yet been thought of as possible. To move towards a new future. That is what her spirit really targeted. That is the large vision, not the small vision that accepts what is familiar, known. It is not that to repeat the old ways that she has come, or even Mother and Sri Aurobindo, but to do something that has not been done, that is believed to be impossible. That is what they are for. They have come to do. Of splendor and of calm. The two are not contradictory. Usually that which is very splendid is not considered calm. Quiet and yet magnificent at the same time. Magnificent is great, powerful, strong, but not excited. Quietly fighting. Over the centuries she has been doing this. In age after age she has been quietly working. And that is why she is part of Prakriti. Overflew the ways of thought to unborn things. Okay, we stop there.